The German government has agreed to buy out almost all shares of the private gas utility Uniper, effectively nationalizing the company. It's the latest twist in a months-long saga that began with Russian moves to slash the delivery of pipeline gas.
Uniper is set to have a new majority owner, the German government, which has bought out Finnish state-owned energy company Fortum and now holds 98.5% of shares. Uniper had been caught up in the ongoing energy crisis after Russia stopped almost all natural gas flows to Germany in response to sanctions over the war in Ukraine. To deliver on its long-term contracts, Uniper had to buy gas elsewhere at much higher prices. This led to a devastating loss of 12 billion euros during the first half of the year, and it will lead to further losses down the road. Uniper is not the only energy company facing losses. As a general measure to prop up the sector, the German government was looking to instate a levy on gas, close to 2.5 cents per kilowatt hour, to be paid by consumers. It is now unclear if that's still possible. With Uniper being nationalized, the government would end up getting the money that gas consumers paid with a levy on gas. That means it wouldn't be a levy anymore, but a tax. And the government can only impose taxes under very specific circumstances, which don't apply here. So after nationalization and another 8 billion euros provided, more money might be needed to keep Uniper afloat. It's just part of the price for Germany's long dependency on cheap Russian gas.
Hans-Peter Borghoff researches financial markets at Hohenheim University. He joins me now from Stuttgart. Hans-Peter, welcome to the show. You followed the banking crisis more than a decade ago when states cited the system relevance of private businesses as a reason to intervene. Is that same rationale also justified here?
Yes, it's justified, and it's even more so justified because, I mean, a banking crisis is a bad thing, but you can get out of it on your own. Here we have a kind of war policies and war economic policies which are necessary. We have to keep the backbone of our economy running, otherwise we don't have the economic force to get through the difficult times in front of us. So the state must guarantee this, although for sure state ownership is not a very efficient form of ownership usually.
As you just observed, banks, in that case, return to profitability rather fast. In this case, it might be different. Is this a stewardship, or is it going to be a genuine state ownership for quite a time?
In the past, in many places, this became a permanent ownership. I think that's not a good idea. So many institutions of that type stayed under state control in many countries and became very inefficient. So I think we should have the perspective to get rid of this state ownership as the moment it gets possible again with regard to the war situation in the East and the general situation on the global markets for energy.
Do you think, however, it could be hard for the state to back out now that it's in?
Well, I think at the moment, I think it's not a good idea anyway. We must organize our gas supply in a way that the industry has enough gas and that at least people don't freeze to death. And we must be able to organize the shortage of gas in an efficient and a fast way, particularly. In the long run, however, I'm very much aware of when the state comes in, the other criteria which are not the economist criteria, which, for example, bring people into board positions, things like that. Politics plays a role in that. So in the long run, this is not an efficient way to organize things. But a war, as we have in Europe at the moment, is not a very efficient thing anyway. We'll lose a lot of efficiency due to this war.
There's a plan for Germany to pass along a lot of the costs that these utilities were facing, a gas surcharge to come into effect in the coming days. If Germany ends up taking over some of these companies, such as Uniper, will it be harder to ask gas consumers to essentially foot the bill for nationally owned utilities?
Definitely. It might also be not legally feasible because, as you mentioned before, it becomes a kind of a tax. In a way, it's also a bit unfair because, I mean, the people who took gas as their energy didn't know about these risks, and now they have to bear the risk and have to wear the cost, carry the cost of this special risk. The same could have happened in a different geopolitical situation with oil or any other kind of energy, except for sure the renewable energies. So I think also this kind of pushing all the costs on the gas consumers looks not very fair.
All right, Hans-Peter Borghoff at Hohenheim University in Stuttgart. Thank you very much.
Pleasure.